Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you guys are all enjoying the GBL and hopefully everything is going in your favor. I really like Retro Cup. I remember the last time it was around, I really enjoyed playing it. And I particularly remember that I was using Shadow Dragonite the last time it was around as well. But Shadow Dragonite is so strong in the Retro Cup because Fairy types are banned. And because Fairy types are banned, we can run Shadow Dragonite with a fighter, and they work really well together because Shadow Dragonite is going to be weak to ice types, and then a fighter is going to take care of those ice types for you. Also, before I get into the team that you guys are seeing on the screen right now, which is very, very, very strong, I want to point something out, but a lot of the teams that I was using in Open Great League are performing a lot better for me now because a lot of the teams, if you guys recall, that I suggested in Open Great League are extremely weak to Alolan Sandslash, and some of them struggle against dark types like Drapion and Malamar. But because those are banned, I was having a much better time with them in the Retro Cup. So for example, one of my favorite teams was Shadow Jumpluff on the lead with Diggersby and Dunsparce in the back. And there's no Alolan Sandslash to really worry about. There is Dugong, however, but I noticed a lot of people are shying away from using Dugong because of how many people are running rollout users like the cow that you guys are seeing on the screen right now, Miltank, and Dunsparce, of course, and then there's Licky Licky. So I feel like the usage of Dugong has gone down a little bit from the first day. Again, I was also playing on the first day of Retro Cup. I saw a lot more Dugongs yesterday than I did today. But in general, I would say Jumpluff is really shining in the Retro Cup, especially with that Alolan Sandslash and that Drapion out of the way. If you're struggling to build a team, just put Jumpluff and Dunsparce on the same team and then pick a third Pokemon. I wouldn't necessarily recommend Diggersby, but if you don't like the team that you guys are seeing on the screen right now, which I'm going to share with you guys, then that is a solid core for you guys to consider. Now, moving on to the team that I am actually going to cover today. Actually, speaking of Jumpluff, yesterday I was running this exact same team, but I was running the Shadow Jumpluff in place of Dragonite on the lead, and it performed really well. My initial plan was to share those battles with you guys, but then today I played with the Shadow Dragonite and I just liked it so much more. I guess it's the damage output that Shadow Dragonite provides. It's really good. And with those fairy types out of the way, obviously, then that Shadow Dragonite is really, really going to shine as long as it's not aligned to a Dugong like we are seeing in this match. I was able to align my Annihilape to that Dugong, which is really nice. And yeah, I just felt like this one performed so much better. I saw more Dugongs yesterday than I did today, so I think it will come down to a little bit of luck, but I really liked this team composition because you have that Shadow Dragonite on the lead, which is going to be extremely weak to ice types, and then you sort of have two ice type answers in the back. Annihilape is going to hit for super effective with the counters, and then you have Oranguru, which is going to hit for super effective against most of the ice types because most of them will have a secondary typing, making them weak to grass type moves. And you have access to that Trailblaze on Oranguru, so that's why I really liked this team. And for the most part, Oranguru is going to be your safe swap. So you can run this team with either Jumpluff or Dragonite on the lead. With Jumpluff, your team is going to have more bulk. With Dragonite, your team is going to be very squishy, but that damage output is very valuable. The only thing I would say is do not substitute Shadow Dragonite for a non-Shadow Dragonite. You need it to be Shadow. If you don't have Shadow Dragonite, I would recommend replacing it with that Jumpluff. Again, I tried the team with Jumpluff. It worked really well yesterday, and Jumpluff can be Shadow or non-Shadow. Both will work. I think the non-Shadow in this situation might be better, but that is an option for you. And if you don't have either of those, you might be able to get away with a Goodra on the lead. And then one more option for you guys to consider would be a Dunsparce lead because your Annihilape is going to be weak to that Talonflame. Actually, the backline is pretty weak to Talonflame. And that actually reminds me, why I took the Jumpluff off the team. Yesterday, for some reason, I started seeing a lot of Talonflames, and I was really struggling against that Pokemon. I actually started seeing a lot of fire types. That's probably why I ended up putting the Dragonite today on my team. Now that I think of it, Dunsparce is going to take care of those fire types for you guys, but it's also going to take care of another Pokemon that I was struggling against today, which was Charjabug. Well, I wouldn't say I really struggled against it. I was actually able to handle it pretty well with the Pokemon that I have, and you guys are going to get to see a little bit of that in today's video. But Dunsparce is going to be able to handle that a lot better, and it's also going to be able to handle Jumpluff, which this current team also struggles against. So now that I think about it, Dunsparce seems like a really good lead on this team. Okay, those are all the options for you guys. I have rambled for way too long and I haven't gotten into the battles, so let's just jump into these battles. On the lead in this match, we saw Primeape, and this entire team is going to be really good against this Primeape. It has nowhere to go, and my opponent swapped out into an Arctibax. I was able to align my Annihilape to their Arctibax, take care of that with Annihilape, and then my opponent's final Pokemon was a Goodra. I was able to take out most of the Goodra's health with my Dragonite, and then I had a Oranguru aligned to their Primeape, and I was able to take that win. But the next match is not going to be as easy for us because we are going to see that pesky Jumpluff on the lead. I decided to go ahead and shield the first aerial ace from them just in case. I think they built up to the acrobatics, which is why I went ahead and used the shield, but I should be able to reach a second Dragon Claw here, and we are going to take the Jumpluff out, but we are a shield down. Now my opponent brings in a Dunsparce. This is fine. I am going to be able to bring in the Annihilape for Dunsparce, but my opponent swaps out immediately into a Primeape, and I go ahead and catch the Rage Fist on my Oranguru. I know that this could possibly be a close combat, so I go ahead and shield it, but it ends up being an Ice Punch. And now we are 2 shields down, but I am going to be able to damage this Dunsparce with my Confusions. They are going to go ahead and use both their shields for the Trailblazes from my Oranguru, probably calling that my Annihilape is not going to be able to do as much damage if I'm not running a fighting type move, which they are correct. Most Annihilapes are going to run that Night Slash for the Oranguru matchup. Night Slash is going to be super effective against Oranguru, but here I'm going to be able to buff my counter damage enough to take the Dunsparce out, and we're able to survive 2 drill runs, which is really good, and we take that win. Moving on to the next battle, we are going to be up against a Drifblim on the lead, and I would have expected my opponent to stay in and go for an Icy Wind, which I will definitely shield, but my opponent swaps out into a Dunsparce. Because they swapped out into this Dunsparce this quickly, I am expecting another Pokemon that is going to be weak to a fighting type in the back. They're obviously trying to draw out the fighter here and get it aligned to their Drifblim so that Drifblim can take care of it. But I recognize this, and I went ahead and saved up so much energy on my Annihilape. That way I could get my shield back, and I waited for my switch timer to be up, and then I brought in Oranguru. Oranguru is going to be really good against Drifblim, and if my opponent's final Pokemon is a rollout user, which it ends up being a Miltank, then I would much rather draw that out with my Oranguru than my Dragonite. Now my opponent actually ended up staying in the matchup against Oranguru with their Drifblim, so I was able to get them really low, and because of that, they're not going to have enough health on Drifblim to take care of my Dragonite, and I was also able to get their Miltank really low, so I am going to be able to take their Miltank out with Dragonite before they can reach a move against us, and we are going to take that win. Moving on to the next match, we are going to be up against a Golurk on the lead, which is a really good lead for us, but I really do not want this aligned to my Annihilape. My opponent swaps out into a Golisopod. I should have stayed in with my Dragonite because this thing has access to X-Scissor, and that is going to be super effective against my Oranguru. So I'm really not happy with this play. I brought Oranguru into a Golisopod. Okay, questionable play, but my opponent actually ends up using both shields for this, and I'm okay with bringing in Annihilape here. I'm going to call that they don't have Aerial Ace, so I let this go. Thank goodness. It is X-Scissor. X-Scissor is going to be very resisted on Annihilape. Because I was able to farm them down, I'm going to be able to go for a Rage Fist against their Golurk, but my opponent's final Pokemon is going to be a Dunsparce. Because they used both of their shields on their Golisopod, I'm going to be able to go for a superpower against Dunsparce, one-shot them, and then my opponent goes ahead and top lefts. GG's to our opponent, but that was kind of RPS. Although they were able to win Switch, but because they gave up both shields, that was their downfall. Moving on to the next battle, we're going to be up against an Altaria on the lead, and Altaria actually wrecks Shadow Dragonite, but my opponent goes ahead and immediately swaps into a Miltank. Again, because they immediately swapped out into that rollout user, I'm expecting them to have another rollout user in the back, probably a Dunsparce. We've been seeing a lot of these players swap immediately into something that is going to be weak to fighters, draw the fighter out, and then have their flying type aligned to the fighter. I recognize this, but I also messed up there. I undercharged the Night Slash against the Miltank, and they ended up reaching another Ice Beam, which is not good for me. I misplayed there, but that's okay. I swap into Dragonite as soon as my opponent comes back in with that Altaria because I don't want them to farm me down and have a lot of energy. And because of that, we draw the Dunsparce out. That's fine. My opponent actually lets me get to 2 moves on Dragonite, so I'm able to take both of their shields, and then I can have my Oranguru aligned to their Altaria. Now, because my opponent let me get a lot of damage off on them on Dunsparce, I know that their Dunsparce is in Trailblaze range, so I was able to farm their Altaria down, have enough energy for a Trailblaze, and Oranguru wins CMP over Dunsparce, and we're able to take that win, and that is going to be a 5-0 in that set. And do you guys want to cringe? I claimed the first Stardust reward, and then I was like, oh, wait, I should use a star piece on this. Yeah, I ended up claiming that Stardust reward and then using the star piece. That's nice. This is why I always have no Stardust. Anyways, moving on to the next battle, we are going to be up against a Cresselia on the lead. Tricky lead, but I should be able to double shield against this and take it out. However, my opponent baits with a Grass Knot and then they swap out into a Dunsparce. Okay, again, I'm thinking that my opponent is trying to draw the fighter out here. However, they end up having a slightly different composition. At least I'm able to take the Dunsparce out and then still have a lot of energy for a Rage Fist, which I thought I was going to throw on a Cresselia, but my opponent actually brings in a Clodsire. So I'm able to get 2 Rage Fists off on the Clodsire, and then my opponent swaps back out into Cresselia. I am going to take this Cresselia out with my Dragonite, and I should be good here because I am going to take my opponent's final shield with this Dragon Claw, and then I have a full health Oranguru for this Clodsire. At this point, my opponent is not going to be able to take us out. They see the Oranguru, and they go ahead and they top left. Moving on to the next battle, we're going to be up against a Shadow Dragonite on the lead. Now, I don't know what happens here. This should be a simultaneous KO, but we end up taking their Dragonite out, and then we can go for a Dragon Claw on the next Pokemon that comes in. They bring in a Dunsparce. I bring in Annihilape, but then my opponent swaps out into a Charjabug. I am going to double shield my Annihilape against this Charjabug. We were able to take a shield from them, which is good, but I'm gonna let this go because I know this is an X-Scissor. My opponent didn't build up to a Discharge, and X-Scissor is very resisted. I'm able to go for another Rage Fist, and I am going to go ahead and shield whatever this is. They go for another X-Scissor, but now I have a lot of energy for this Dunsparce. They let the Night Slash go, and then I'm just able to counter their Dunsparce down. My opponent doesn't see that I have the Oranguru in the back. GG's to our opponent. Moving on to the next battle, we get the Oranguru on the lead, and I'm going to go for a Dragon Claw here. Let's see what my opponent decides to do. They let it go, and I decide to shield my Dragonite. They go for a foul play. If it wasn't foul play, my opponent would have been able to make it to another move, But then they go for Foul Play, and then they swap into Ursaring. Now, I am afraid that this Ursaring might be running Play Rough, but for the most part, they should just be running Swift and Close Combat, which Annihilape really resists. So it's unfortunate that I had to go ahead and use my shield there. But they bring that Oranguru back in. They're not able to reach a move. I'm able to take them out with the counters, and then my opponent's final Pokemon is a Licky. So a triple normal team, and Annihilape was basically able to destroy that team. GG's to our opponent. Even up against the Oranguru, we did pretty well. Moving on to the next battle, we are going to be up against an Arctibax on the lead, and Arctibax on the lead would have an answer to a fighting type in the back. So I went for a Dragon Claw, and then I swapped into my Oranguru, and I was not expecting my opponent to be ABA weak to fighters. This is not great for me. That means whatever Pokemon they have left, it is going to be good against my Annihilape, and I was correct. They are running an Oranguru of their own, but I am going to be able to go for 2 Night Slashes here. The first one, they go ahead and use their final shield on, and the second one is going to land. And I should be able to bring in my Oranguru here and farm them down with the Confusions, and then have a move ready to go for their Arctibax. I'm going to double shield here. My opponent is going to have to throw their energy immediately if they do not want me to get this move off. But they don't, because they know I'm going to be able to farm them down with my Dragonite, and I am able to take that win. That was Annihilape up against Oranguru. This is why we are running Night Slash. And guys, this is the final battle of the video, which I end up misplaying so badly. As soon as I saw the Clodsire on the lead, I should have just swapped into my Annihilape. But what I tried doing here is I weakened the Clodsire, and then I attempted to catch a potential Sludge Bomb or Stone Edge on Annihilape. It doesn't work. We end up drawing out the Charge-a-Bug at least. At least this is not going to be against my Oranguru, but my opponent goes ahead and shields the second Rage Fist. Okay, at least it's in the red. Maybe I can take it out with my Dragonite shield once, and of course my opponent goes ahead and baits with an X Scissor, but at least we're able to Dragon Breath it down. And then I catch a Sludge Bomb, or I catch a Stone Edge, sorry, on Oranguru. And now this is where I needed to shield, because my opponent goes for an Earthquake, and their final Pokemon is a Dunsparce. I think if I had a healthy Oranguru, I might have had a chance here. Actually, no, I would have lost that either way, but I'm going to go ahead and top left because my opponent is going to be able to reach 2 Rock Slides up against their Dragonite and take us out. So GG's to my opponent. They are going to take that win, and we get back up to the mid 2900s. I have been dropping and climbing. I know in Willpower, I was trying to make Wild Charge Rapidash work, and that didn't go too well. But we are regaining our elo, and I really think I can make back a lot of those points that I lost in Retro Cup. This is one of my favorite cups. But guys, that is going to be the end of our video. Thank you so much for watching. If you like my content, please consider subscribing. Maybe leave a like. It helps me out so much. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.